So we've already graphed linear functions, graphed lines, and now we're going to write linear functions or write the equations of lines. There are three forms of the equation of a line. The most famous form is y equals mx plus b, or aka we are now going to say f of x equals mx plus b. And we like this form because the m stands for the slope and the b stands for the y-intercept, and it makes it easy to graph the line. Does anyone remember standard form? You are right. ax plus by equals c. In other words, all the x's and y's are on one side of the equation, all the numbers are on the other. There's a couple little rules here. A, B, and C have to be integers, which means no fractions. And it has to begin with a positive number. So we'll go over that a little bit more. That's standard form. Does anyone remember point-slope form? Point-slope form really is just the slope formula. M equals y minus y over x minus x. Or you could say y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. A lot of times you see that formula with the x2 minus x1 written on this side. x2 minus x1 times m equals y2 minus y1. But it's the same formula. It's really just the slope formula. So if we write a linear function with the slope of -3 and the y-intercept of -4, do you agree it's y equals -3x minus 4? But we are going to write all our linear functions in function notation. So we're going to want the answer to be f of x equals -3x minus 4. And you'll have to do that even on the test. Here, if I have a point and a slope, there's a couple ways you can do it, but I like to actually use point-slope form and say m equals 13 over 5 equals y minus -7 turns to y plus 7, x minus x turns to x minus 5, and then cross multiply. And I'm going to distribute as I go, so 5y plus 35 equals 13x minus, what's 13 times 5? 65. And then I can solve this for y. So I'm getting here 5y equals 13x minus, isn't that 100? And if I divide everything by 5, I get, and I'm going to write it in function notation, 13/5 x minus 20. That's the equation of that line, given a point and a slope. If I'm just given 2 points, what do I have to find first? Right, I got to find the slope. So -4 minus -3 over 8 minus -4. So the slope is -1/12. Now I'll use this one, I'll use y equals mx plus b. So I know it's y equals -1/12 x plus b. And you'll remember these, that you don't have to have a specific point you choose. Any point solves the equation. So you can choose either point and plug it in. So -4 would equal, if I make x 8, it's going to be -8/12 plus b. So I'm going to have to add 8/12 to both sides, which that's actually like easier said than done, right? -4, I'm going to make that -48/12 just to get a common denominator. So when I add 8/12 to both sides, I'm going to get b equals -40/12, which of course I have to reduce. So it's going to be -10/3. So when I put that one all together, I'm going to get f of x equals -1/12 x minus 10/3. Now those were actually pretty tough examples. And it doesn't matter, like I said, if you use point-slope form or slope-intercept form, you just write it in slope-intercept form at the end. The next ones are going back to standard form, ax plus by equals c. So thankfully, we just got to manipulate the equation, move it over so all the x's and y's are on one side, all the numbers are on the other. But you have to remember a couple of the rules, one of them being it has to start positive. So I multiplied everything there by a -1, so it began positive. If the x-intercept is 2, that's 2, 0. If the y-intercept is -1, That's basically saying the b is negative 1. What would the slope be? 0 minus negative 1 over 2 minus 0, so 1/2. So this is y equals 1/2 x minus 1, but they want me to write it in standard form. So if I move it over, negative 1/2 x plus y is negative 1, and I'm going to multiply my whole entire equation by negative 2, so it turns into x minus 2y equals 2. Yep, standard form. And we're going a little bit, you might be like, you're going so fast. This is all review. And in fact, this was your last chapter last year. So you ended chapter, whatever it was, in geometry with all of this same material. So it is a review. Slope of parallel lines, you'll remember, is the, right, same. What about the slope of perpendicular lines? Do you remember? Yes, opposite reciprocal. So like 2/3 and negative 3/2, opposite reciprocal. So this is like the classic Algebra 1 question. Write an equation of a linear function that passes through a certain point parallel to this line. So we do something I call steal the slope. The slope of that line is negative 2. Parallel lines have the same slope. So my new line, and I'm just going to use y equals for a second, is going to have a slope also of negative 2. So I'm going to take my x and y and plug them in. 1 equals negative 2 times 1 is just negative 2 plus b, so b is 3. So when I put that all together, my new line is negative, wait, what did I do? Negative 2x plus 3, negative 2, right? Y is, oh, there we go. Y is negative 1. So the b here is 1. So y equals negative 2x plus 1. So I have to write it in function form, negative 2x plus 1. Yeah, it couldn't have been the exact same as what I started with. So what it's saying is those two lines are parallel, but this line goes through this point. Try it again with perpendicular. The perpendicular is opposite reciprocal. So this line has a slope of negative 1/3, but the slope of the perpendicular line is going to be positive 3. Y equals 3x plus b, opposite reciprocal. Again, plugging in negative 4 and negative 1, so I get negative 4 equals negative 3 plus b, so b is negative 1. So it's y equals 3x minus 1. Or, final answer, 3x minus 1 equals f of x. You have to put your answers in function notation. The last one is same thing, but the notation here might scare us a bit. So f of 0 equals 17. This is the same as saying the ordered pair 0, 17 is a solution. If I put in a 0, I get out a 17. 0, 17, isn't that a special solution? Yeah, that's the y-intercept. That's the b. Here it says y or f of x decreases by 5 when x increases by 2. What are they talking about? Right, the slope. Change in y over change in x. So it's y equals negative 5/2 x plus 17, or better answer, best answer you have to have, f of x equals negative 5/2 x plus 17. 2 is just giving you two ordered pairs, 2, 6, 4, 1. It's basically the same question we did earlier where you find the slope, y minus y, x minus x. Then, and I'm going to go back to my point slope form. So 5 over negative 2 equals, I'll choose this point, y minus 1 over x minus 4. If I cross multiply, negative 2y plus 2 equals 5x minus 20. Subtract 2 from both sides, negative 2y equals 5x minus 22. And if I divide everything by negative 2, I get 5/2 x plus 11. All right, grand finale, number 3. 6, 0 is one ordered pair, and 0, negative 3. Well, this made my life nice because I was given the y-intercept, right? What's the slope? 0 minus negative 3 over 6 minus 0, so the slope is a half. So I can pretty quickly get the equation, 1/2 x minus 3. And that's like part 1. Part 2 says, can you find f of 4 and f of 10? Do it in a different color. And that's what gets people. They're like, I can get the f of x, but how do you get the f of 4? It's just asking you to evaluate that function when x is 4. 1/2 times 4 minus 3. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. F of 10. 1/2 of 10. 5 minus 3 is 2. Those stand for ordered pairs, which are also solutions. 4, negative 1, and 10, 2. All right, writing linear functions.